And from pathologist or a biochemist or a histopathologist, we should be more of a clinical solution provider. And that's what the connected healthcare means to be. End-to-end connecting everything, connecting, because unless a report gives an outcome, it's of no value. An outcome which is done timely. That means the information reaches the pathologist onwards to the clinician, and action happens on that. I think that's something important to do. Looking forward. Pleasure meeting all of you.
So, welcome, Dr. Ravi. Next goes Dr. Alok, please.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, DHN, and to be a part of this great panel. So I'm Dr. Alok Sharma. I look after the R&D at Dr. Lal PathLabs, and I'm also director of the Nephropathology and Electron Microscopy services there. And of course, digital health is one unifying factor which is kind of taking our field and the entire medical fraternity forward. And I'm glad to be a part of this panel and look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Well, I think good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anoop Arora.
Yes.
I'm a founder and CEO of ITDOSE. Thank you very much for joining us on this discussion, because I'm very much excited about this, because I think the input from every panelist will actually set a benchmark for the industry, because there's a lot of confusion going on in the current days, especially in terms of digitalization as well as for the automation. So probably we can set a benchmark to discuss in detail about the digital foundation. So I'm open to that. Thank you.
So welcome, Anoop ji. Now, last being the moderator, I'm very glad to be I'm moderating this session. Well, glad for the opportunity. It's so veteran panel. They themselves have set a context and ready to kickstart. I'm Sanish. I'm in Apollo Hospital, Ahmedabad. I lead the IT part in this region. I'm by profession into healthcare IT for the last 15 years in a leadership role. Completed my CSCAO and recently got empaneled as a digital Mitra, which is very exciting. So that is how, and this forum, since it is very aptly titled Building Blocks Connected Healthcare from the Foundation to Move Forward. Let me, as such, we have already the context set in place, but still I want to give a very brief note, so that since the subject is so broad in nature, probably will be contexting that into a set of scripted questions to my panelists individually to take their views on a disparate topics. As a country, we have a lot of challenges like digital. The digital gap itself is a problem for our country, the digital divide, whatever you call. But we have we are seeing advancements in many of the areas on a day and out. So range of problems like I don't know whether it is appropriate to mention today. Just going through the newspaper, I read that one lady carried one of her mother-in-law 4 kilometers for a KYC. But we are speaking about an AI-driven method in AI-driven adoption in a different set. So these are the broader complexity of our country. Healthcare obviously have its own challenges. We perfectly understand. Though the foundations has been aptly set, we need to build from that. And as of now, AI is dominating. It is predominantly getting discussed. We are already observing challenges related to AI. Few random news I was referring to. Given this context, let me start with Dr. Ravi. Diagnostics and pathology traditionally have been viewed as episodic. Now, how do you foresee the evolving role of this paradigm?
Well, I think I'll probably just start with very simple thing. I think we all understand it pretty well. If you look at the the 70%, probably much more nowadays, because this evidence-based kind of medical practice. Clinical decisions are made by or influenced by laboratory data or the findings, whatever the lab does. And we have a very small share of spending on it, little kind of a thing, not probably more than, if the spending wise would be much more than 5% at the maximum they have. But then it gives you a direction of so much, it redefines, it gives direct declination, and that shows the hidden strategic power of pathology or diagnostics. Now look at the image. I think I'll probably see the other side, the small town image. A girl or maybe a boy, somebody who have a small slip, probably goes to a lab, get a test done, printed report comes to the person. Then she goes to a clinician to show the report. He writes a prescription, and after the prescription, then she takes it and goes back home. That's just a piece of paper. After 3 months or 4 months, she comes back again. Where is the? Probably I don't know where the paper is gone. Slip reports are lost here and there. Whole journey restarts again. Now, this is something which is really the real practice which is happening in the tier 3, tier 4, or probably even tier 2 kind of city, even a bigger city at some point of time. Today, a lot of things technology is doing. That's something what we are talking about. So pathology is actually, diagnosis is no longer, I think I'll probably come back to the diagnostic, is no longer a test provider. And I probably see it becoming a continuous intelligence engine of healthcare. Earlier, pathology answered, what is the disease? Probably that's it. Ye bimari hai, that's kind of a thing. But in future, we are not only telling what is the disease, we're talking about who is at risk, what will progress, how will it progress, which therapy would work, which drug would work on it, target-based therapy we're talking about, precision medicine we're talking about, and when should intervention happen before hospitalization, prevention, even does it patient requires an early kind of a treatment, early indication. I think that diagnostic is going to provide all these answers to the future as we move forward. So we are actually doing, a lot of changes are happening. It's moving a lab function to you can say, a clinical navigation system, driving the entire treatment journey of the patient, right? Even or a health for that matter.
Hello.
Not only over the treatment, preventive, predictive health, treatment and follow up afterwards, kind of thing. Then you can say that, say oncology, diabetes, cardiac diseases, sepsis, preventive wellness, longitudinal diagnostic data can predict deterioration much earlier than symptom. Everybody knows the power of this thing, but I think we need to use technology, not work in isolation, have to put them together. And if you do this together, you'll be able to arrive at a better diagnosis and better treatment, better outcome, better health. So I think lastly, what we're doing is connected care means diagnostic is going to move now from episodic to continuous. It's not like once. It has to be like it's happened. Like you enter in a hospital movie, you see the 10 minutes, then you sleep off, then you see after half an hour, again you sleep off, again. You just missed out, seen the end, middle, and the last, but you missed all the critical parts. And that's where I think a lot of happening will happen. So reactive to predictive, reports are getting more of a clinical intelligence, lab-centered, not like entire patient journey centered, right from where they thought of what has to be done, what need to be done, reflux, and how to follow it up, when to follow up, what medication. I think that's the power of today technology, the AI integrated, EMRs, genomics, wearables, digital pathology, home-based care will make a pathologist now diagnostic a connected clinical partner rather than a back-end department. I think in a nutshell, the future lab will not just diagnose a disease, it will continuously guide health. And this is what exactly we're evolving and we're looking forward to.
Yeah, very nicely articulated, Dr. Ravi. All the blocks, probably from the pieces to a long-term care continuum you have brought in. Let me move to Dr. Alok. Dr. Alok, please let us know, laboratories today generate massive volume of data, clinical data. How can this data be better utilized to create predictive and preventive healthcare models, which could be useful further?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Actually, it's a very pertinent question because what we are seeing today, especially if you talk of large lab chains like ours, we there's a lot of data which is being generated. And the question which is arising and which faces us all is how do we use this large amount of data into in a meaningful way? What we can do? I think what the first most probably there are two or three important points here which we would I would kind put forward. The first one is we should have a with this all this data there should be a feasibility of what we should do is there's a longitudinal phenotyping. That's a very important part because unless you follow up a patient longitudinally and have that longitudinal data set where you also have the follow-up information of whatever single point tests you are doing, that whole algorithm kind of gets completed. It's very difficult to build predictive algorithms on a single point database. So I think that's one very important part. When you do have a large set of database, it is also imperative that you also kind of build in that longitudinality into that data, which would be useful for the algorithms which are being developed on that. Second point I think which is very important and we kind of many times overlook is the business case, right? So just having a
Correct.
large volume of data and it should align with a real world evidence kind of a scenario also, which should be at the outset put it into the whatever you're trying to do. So you have your data, you have your business case or the real world evidence which you want to kind of address upfront, and then you kind of start working on it. That's the second important point which we often should take into account when we are dealing with a large amount of data. And third part, which is very important from a pathologist perspective, from a lab perspective, is we need to tie that specimen preservation part of it at the outset. So biobanking is a very important part of the entire ecosystem where these are treasure hoves, right? When you have a large volume of data, the large volume of data actually emerges from a large volume of samples. And if you are able to preserve those samples in some form which can be used for eventual data driven and AI based algorithm development, I think that part should also be taken care at the outset. So I think that's one very important part which we need to kind of fulfill this thing. And when you do these things in tandem, the data which we are generating at large volumes actually becomes usable for any future applications. Those are my points. Thank you.
Yeah, very much interesting. Obviously, we can accumulate n number of size of the data, but it would be useful and obviously it would make a valid business sense also. Okay, moving further to Dr. Anurag, please. This independent and legacy diagnostic institutions are planning undergoing digital transformation. What is the role of technology evolved within diagnostics practice over the last few years, especially from your perspective also?
Okay, thank you for that question. And firstly, thank you the organizers, and thank you for this very relevant question, Sanish ji. Actually, when I look back many years, I still remember it was 1997, and we were actually featured in the Limca World Book of Records at that point of time. And that time, of course, I was just 8 years of age, 9 years of age, but my parents achieved the major feat of uploading reports online, and it was actually featured in the Limca World Book of Records. So, like what Gaur sir was just saying, I think that entire kind of traditional way of doling out reports in paper form now started getting digitized more than 2 to 3 decades ago, and that is, of course, now percolating effectively in tier two, tier three, and then slowly and steadily with, of course, companies such as ITDOSE leading the way, even in rural areas tomorrow, and labs there. But I think digitization at the forefront, especially of reports, was something that we saw traditionally, and now almost all labs are embracing that. Secondly, I feel that after digitization, the next wave of what we saw and we are seeing currently is integration. Now, of course, across various points of the healthcare ecosystem, how all of these can talk to each other so that the diagnostic values can flow from one point to another. Because, like all of us know, these values are the ones that really kind of dictate management. So, I mean, for the patient, literally not to be holding their reports in a hard copy, and when the doctor sees them, but the doctor maybe is seeing them through the HIS that is again integrated with your LIS itself. It might be a simple EHR or even like a patient app that the doctor has access to. I mean, so it's more integration where the decision maker is directly getting access to these particular diagnostic values. I think the third major wave, and that of course is bound to come and also currently in progress, is intelligence and continuity. So digitization, integration, and now we are in intelligence and continuity. And what that basically means is that okay, let me give a little simple example, then a little futuristic example, right? So we use something that we call as CDS. So it is basically clinical decision support. And of course, Anoop would know well, we do it with all the machines with this help. But any analyzer today, any high-end analyzer looking at the longitudinal phenotype, like what Dr. Sharma sir was also just saying, was that looking at those values, looking at the trend analysis, putting the different dots together of the data points that we have actually suggests reflex testing in the case. So, for example, if there is a patient with, say, a very high HbA1c and a blood sugar fasting that's extremely high, it's going to automatically reflex test for a cystatin C or a creatinine or a microalbumin. And in case the analyzer has that particular sample, it just needs one human interface where our doctors say that, okay, go ahead. And then, of course, a stitch in time saves nine. So, I mean, if it is a critical value and suppose someone's creatine phosphokinase is extremely elevated and it's an elderly patient who's also logged in angina as a symptom, automatically our doctor can kind of up test or reflex test to a high sensitivity troponin I, so that we can rule out a myocardial infarction. So again, clinical decision support is a great example of what I feel can move the needle in patients' health. And again, a very not so futuristic, it's going to happen every day now. But we see so many of these wearable, right, Zanish ji? So suppose you're wearing a continuous glucose monitor that we see so many people monitoring their blood sugar with. And suppose that blood sugar spikes right now, then of course there are gadgets like insulin pumps that can automatically pump in that amount of insulin to bring down that level of blood sugar. But I also feel that the ecosystem is not only expanding vertically but also horizontally. What I mean by that is that right now it's limited to the two devices on the human itself. But tomorrow, this value of the elevated blood sugar from the CGM is going to travel to your physician who will be sitting remotely in the hospital, not only be able to order reflex testing, but also in the case, suppose you have diabetic ketoacidosis and there is an emergency, they can also send an ambulance to your residential address. So I mean that is how we see that technology has evolved, so that instead of the patient going from one point to another, the entire points of healthcare revolve around the patient, with the patient right in the center. So I'll take a pause here, but broadly, that is how I've seen that technology has evolved over the past few years in the diagnostics domain.
Very, very interesting, Dr. Arjun. The multiple waves you are articulated, as well as the immense scope of MIoT devices and getting into action, not from a monitoring mode to intervention, otherwise from a diagnostics to taking to the next level of therapeutic delivery. Very interesting. Moving further to Mr. Anoop, please. Healthcare organization when adopt this multiple digital system over a time, leading to fragmented workflows from technology provider. What is your perspective? How can organization get more connected and take advantage of this?
Well, thank you for this question. Uh, to start with, let me just give you a quick insight. Probably nowadays, because we are into healthcare IT, so I've seen it that people are talk about automation, people are talk about their applications, but when we talk about connected health, so it is beyond the individual fragmented, systems that every chain or individual labs are using. If you talk about current scenario in Indian healthcare IT, you will not find a single lab, diagnostics, radiology, even the hospitals and any stakeholders. They are using some sort of systems. But when we talk about connected health, so we need to have very clear thing that it's not all about adding one application. It is all about connected the applications together so that we can get a seamless integration across the within a system as well as outside your organization. There are a couple of things which we need to be very much clear on that. As a service provider, if you ask me as a technology provider, I would always suggest to all the organization, whatever the system you are using, which company you are using, the important part is your current system should have a capability to integrate, to interoperability. Means your system should have compliances of HL7, FHIR. Even the current system, whatever you are using, should have API support architecture. Because if you want to set a foundation for digital health, you should not do that without using a product, without using any system which is connected to any other system, talk seamlessly, exchange the data without having these compliances. Apart from that, the second important thing, which is also very we cannot ignore, that is a unified data architecture. If we want that our entire ecosystem in Indian health scenario will be talk to each other, we should have a very unified data layer. We have seen in our experiences that most of the organization are digitalized. They have running their softwares, they are running their application, multi application of one organization, but the data is not structured. The data is not unified. They are spending department wise, or maybe one application have that data, another application have another data. Until we make a layer of unified data architecture, we cannot set a foundation, we cannot set a building block for digital transformation in the digital connectivity to across the ecosystem. The third important point, which is very valid in current scenario, that is, now it's a time when all the organization, either it's a hospital or diagnostic, they should not think this transformation project wise. Earlier, if you meet CTOs, if you meet owners, if you meet big houses, they always take IT as a project. I would always suggest all of my clients, even all of my to whom I met, that always took these IT as a platform first instead of product. It means that you have to redesign your structure, if you have to redesign your blueprint, and consider your automation as a platform oriented, not a project oriented. Because once you think over that this is a platform, then you can make a blueprint where multiple applications, either from same vendor, maybe from the different vendors, from the same part of country, or maybe across the globe, if they all are standardized, if they all are having a unified data structure, and they are all are compliant, they can connect well, we can exchange the data together. And once we exchange the data together, we can create a centralized repository of the data, and that is a building block of digital transformation when we say the connected ecosystem. And it will definitely help in the new era of AI also. So I think these are the few pointers that we need to be addressed of. Hello.
Thanks, Anoop, for your perspective. Obviously, IT being from a point of platform, even we are seeing CIOs participating in the boardrooms. So that part obviously is growing and picking up momentum in our region also. Moving next further, Sir Natesh, we have heard about 3 diagnostics veterans and 1 reputed IT vendor, his perspective. Now, you and me represent the hospital segment. So now it is on you. You become an advocate. What is our operational challenges? Probably in regular times, we may not be speaking each other in office politics.
Right.
Please, go ahead.
Thank you so much for that question. And let me reintroduce myself, because Rupali has asked me to introduce myself again. So I'm Dr. Natesh. I'm the COO of a hospital, a very well-known cardiac super specialty hospital called Frontier Lifeline. And let me again say that I'm very happy to be part of this panel. And the previous speakers have been amazing and very clearly explained and very simply explained lovely terms and terminologies have been used. So coming to your question, Mr. Sanish, from the hospital point of view, there are many, the hospital is vast, and, it is, there are really a lot of organizational issues happens in every hospital, small and big. Some of the main ones I would like to touch on is breaking departmental silos, right? In every group, I've been the head of 3 or 4 large groups here in the south, and every hospital I've seen, they work beautifully in silos, right? But when you ask them to work together as one unit, that's where most groups fail. So I think it's very important from a management point of view to break these kind of departmental silos and ensure that all the departments work together. One of the best ways of doing that is by the use of technology. So when I came to this hospital a couple of years ago, it was fragmented. The OPs was in a different software. The IP was running on a completely different software. Both of them were not talking to each other. There was no connected EHR. So what happened was, one department, like for instance, the lab, they had 2 computers, there are 2 systems, one to take out their reports on, one to put it in the OP, one to put in the IP. So, those are the problems, even with a big hospital like this, very well known, 24 years old we are, right? So I think management should literally bring in somebody, people who understands the problems, because believe me when I tell you, problems are very customized in each hospital. They are not the same. You don't think the problems are the same in different hospitals. They have unique. Our hospital has a very unique workflow because we use something called physician assistants, which many other hospitals don't use. So we need to customize. I believe strongly we need to customize all our transformation to what we need. So this is the first point I would like to make. Break the department silos, make them function as a group. So that is not just technology; it's also a culture shift. So that is very important. The second thing is workflow standardization. I'm sure you all know each department has their own templates in doing things in many hospitals. I think that is, if you're going to digitally transform, we need to have SOPs for every department, and they should be standardized. I have seen, collecting the same data from the patients in 5 different departments. There's absolutely no need to do that, right? So we should have centralized SOPs, standardized operation systems, and processes, so that we cut down time, and it's easy for the EMR to pick up this. And nowadays, if you have a strong EMR. One more thing I would like to say that I think we should all have. My next point will be that data interoperability. I think my previous speakers have touched upon that. We all have different digitalization in some form, but they don't talk to each other. I think it's very, very important to have everything connected to one EMR, right? By doing that itself, you'll be solving a lot of these issues inside any organization, let it be a lab or in a hospital, all right? So having said that, I will go to the next one. I think resistance to digital transformation is something I'm sure all of us have seen. So change should come right from the top. I feel, right from, I'm the CEO, I see CEOs here. From the top, we have to push it down, and push it down meaning we can't just tell them do this. You know how resistant doctors are to technology, right? So we'll have to somehow enable that. That involves even spending some money. We need to spend money. We need to have learning programs. We need to have training programs. At FLL, we have programs like MedLearn, which constantly they can learn on their phone every day at ease, in the comfort of their homes. So we have programs like that, which brings them into the digital domain so they can understand. And of course, going forward, I think I was very interested when somebody was talking about longitudinal. I think Dr. Alok Sharma was talking about longitudinal data. We talk AI, but without longitudinal data, there's of no use. So I just want to touch and just continue a little bit beyond that by saying, how do we actually collect this longitudinal data? If hospitals wait for the patients to keep coming back to your hospital, and if you think you can follow up and get a reasonably good amount of a data set, that's not going to happen. So which is why we have built a very, very strong patient-facing app in our ecosystem, which also connects to the same EMR. I believe strongly it's very important to have continuity beyond your hospital walls with the patient. So which means literally when the patient, any medical event happens to the patient, we should come to know of it. So as we go on, I'll explain what kind of remote patient monitoring systems and IOMTs, which we ourselves have created. Thank you for this opportunity again.
Yeah, it's quite familiar context, which I regularly listen from seniors. No doubt, every forum we make a comment that doctors are resistant to technology, but you yourself only followed that what all things specifically you are done for consultants. So that system designed for them with their participation, they would take it forward.
Absolutely, you're right.
This is what my take on this, and with all respect,
Absolutely.
let me
Just to continue that, just one point I would like to say what we did for a consultant. Just one point here. So we introduced a very strong electronic scribe first of all, which completely, so all our patient-doctor conversations are recorded, completely recorded.
Correct.
And we have also managed to lay a very nice intelligence layer over it, which filters out all the non-medical information. And we have a particular template we use for our cardiology practice, and it goes and auto-populates the template very, very clearly. If you look at, we've achieved about 95% accuracy. So if they talk about something, let's say a movie, it completely filters all that out. It only takes the medical information,
Correct.
goes and auto-populates. So a medical typist, instead of taking 25 minutes to type out a report, now take just 5 minutes because they just have to edit it. So that is one of the things that doctors are very impressed, and now they are slowly switching over to all these kind of systems.
Okay, very, very interesting point. Let me move to Dr. Ravi for further taking it to a different level. Dr. Ravi, it's all about oncology and chronic disease management, especially how important it is, longitudinal diagnostics data, since someone has touched, but still specifically related to your chronic disease management, what we should be focused on.
Well, I think we are all talking about longitudinal journey. Now, that thing, and when it comes to the chronic diseases, and I think that's one very important, because I think NCDs are still about 40% of the entire healthcare burden is, I think, non-communicable diseases. Those are diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular, obesity is now. Even cancer is something, because it's become fairly, treatable. Many of the cancers are become probably a chronic kind of care. So I think I'll just say that, one report is just like a snapshot. This is one snapshot. And one report gives in isolated information. This is today's report, this is the information we have for today. But if you connect the entire journey, and that becomes a clinical story or a journey of the patient, I think this is something which is very, very important for us to understand. Now, in oncology, for that matter, like, say, for example, you talked about patient clinically looks stable today. But if you look at the tumor markers, maybe we started with the base marker and how they're evolving with time. What was the base? 8, now 10, 15, 20. That means something is already happening. Clinically, patient is stable. I think you have to connect with that. Similarly, probably today we have circulating tumor cells. We can think about those actually give you, before the nodule is formed in the tumor nodule, which is almost a 5 millimeter or 3 millimeter plus, which is detectable radiologically, probably circulating tumor cells, or maybe the technologies, we can identify those cells much in advance. So we can decide the treatment. Now, this patient is going to have a relapse much earlier, is heading for relapse, or recurrence is happening, or meds are happening. Molecular genomics, the technology has enabled, unless you connect all this, again, you will not be. You will see it in isolation. For that matter, you can say the molecular mutations. The mutation will evolve. Like, what was the molecular picture now after 6 months, or after treatment, after 2 years? I think the mutations can be read. Therapy responses patterns can be seen from there. Resistance emergence can be seen. But all this will be coming unless you have a journey. Same thing happens, say, in diabetes or chronic kidney diseases or cardiac disorder, HbA1c trajectory. That's something you can monitor. You can talk about creatinine trends. We can talk about inflammatory markers. You can talk about lipid dynamics. All this actually can take you to various, this is what was happening over time, over 1 year. And I think if you have the track of history, you will actually take direction. Because today the patient may look stable, but something is happening inside, and we don't want patient to come up suddenly, which is we probably missed out. And that is isolation, you would definitely like to miss out. Now, data-wise, if you look at the word-wise, and in fact India-wise also, not much of structured data in India available on this part, because it helps you what? It, especially in chronic diseases, helps you in a lower admission rates. I'm sure the hospital people will agree with that. Now, there is a data on that. We don't have a structured data, but generally, say for slightly different, and lower admission means within 30 days of discharge, we're talking about. So it's a PMJ kind of a thing, and they have a structured data. Probably they said, okay, roughly about 5% of people come back for the readmission. Now, if you track them well, why they require admission? Because probably they were not the routine testing was done. The first test probably, and in the hospital, the conditions were deteriorating. It was not noticed. Patient was seen at that point of time. Today, urea is fine, kidney is fine, whatever it is, let discharge. But without realizing, in between the spikes happened here and there. Patient get affected by sugar, whatever it is. Patient comes back. Same thing, like especially in oncology. General trend of the India is about 5 to 7% of the readmission rate. So early intervention, reduce ICU burden, better therapy personalization, and many such things probably will be able to, this is something which is longitudinal data, probably diagnostic, actually can make it much, much better. And I probably say India has a huge opportunity. We have, APDM working on, unique health ID working on. Lot need to be done because this is something totally unstructured data. We have tremendous, huge data. Everybody has got data. Where is the data? Do we have a common server somewhere we can pull out somewhere? Everybody has the data in their own hospital in silos and fragmented. I think even in the institution, the bigger institution on the chains, if you can put that together, the journey, that will be, become a life saving when connected over times. Probably that's the journey, connecting from a variable to, up to like the end. If you connect together, I think whether it's a chronic disease management or cancer, I think you will be able to actually see the entire journey, predict, prevent, and I think prognosis, everything becomes better for healthcare.
Yeah, right, Dr. Ravi. Probably the government insisting and made NABH as a digital nodal agency for digital health standards across the country. Probably should centers would take lead and adopt and penetrate. That would make a unified structure, data structure across. It should help. That is what my take is. Let me move to Dr. Alok. Obviously, any forum without touching upon AI, you feel that you left out something major. So, what is your take on AI? And I will caution to be in a very brief discussion. Otherwise, the topic would be hijacked.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is the flavor of the times right now. And so if you talk about applications, so there may be two parts to this whole story. So what's happening right now, and what do I see the future? So I think what currently AI is being used, specifically we talk in terms of pathology, is basically to reduce the first most important right now application is the reduction in the interoperable variability. We have seen that across specialities in pathology as well as radiology. Wherever there is a variability amongst two humans looking at the same thing, I think that's a very strong area where well-trained artificial intelligence can actually bridge the gap there. So I think that's one very important area which is currently also being used widely. The second part where AI is currently being used is interpreting complex data. So we have a lot of complex data which is being generated from genomics. So you have a lot of variants of uncertain significance, the uncertain ones. So that kind of complex data, even from flow cytometry, we do generate a lot of complex data. So analysis of that complex data, again, there's a very important role which AI even currently is right now playing, and the algorithms are continuously being modified and refined to make that even better. The third part which is being currently used in diagnostics and hospital is where you kind of standardize the reports, right? So the output of every test is a report. So I think AI is currently also playing a great role in kind of standardizing it. So as we have heard all the speakers before, so there has to be a standardized output from whatever most of our activities in the digital domain. So unless the standardization happens, it is very difficult for institutions, even if you open the silos, to communicate with each other. Because if they speak two different languages, it will be very difficult to come to a common conclusion. So I think that's another area where AI is currently playing an important role. And if you look at the future, I think there are a couple of things in future which I, at my personal level, feel being from that background which I am coming from. The first is the multimodal integration. So we talked about the silos. We've probably been touching on the same part, but unless we actually integrate this multimodality, that includes radiology, pathology, the clinical data, the prescriptions, and everything into one view, I think that is where the whole idea of connected digital health would come in. And from a patient's perspective, if you look, I probably will not be very much interested in whether my whole diagnostic data is coming from radiology or pathology. I don't have to go to collect to radiology to collect my report of X-rays, to pathology to collect my. So everything should be integrated. So I think that multimodal integration not only into the processes but also into the reporting part of it is a very important future opportunity which we have. And second important opportunity, maybe it's a more technical opportunity, but let me tell you, a lot of these predictive algorithms which we are kind of building on right now, a large part of it now, a spatial transcriptomics or the spatial analysis of cells in context to each other is playing a great part. So a lot of the content, the core research which is happening, where how are the cells communicating with each other? So we have gone down to that level. And unless we have a nice AI layered over it, a lot of research which is done in the domain of spatial transcriptomics and spatial proteomics will not see the day of the light. So I think that's where I see a lot of value of AI which is being integrated into the core research. And the third point, I'll come back again. So from where we started, from the longitudinal data set, again, I'll come back to the same point. I think unless we integrate AI into our longitudinal data sets, all our efforts are going to waste. So a pathologist who actually has a idea of what the AI algorithm is giving out at the end of the day will be able to contextualize that data and give a meaningful output for it. So that's what my thoughts are. I'll take a pause and I think that's where we are going. Thank you.
Sure, definitely. No more comments on that, probably. Only thing, you put a right perspective of the AI usage rather than an elephant which is going to fly. It's okay, we are under control now. Moving to the speed part of and consumer experience to Dr. Arjun. In one of the forums, I was discussing with a few Gen Z MHA guys. They were telling that in this Blinkit comes in 15 minutes. They deliver everything and went off. Where is your ambulance? I tried to argue to be an advocate from my hospital point of view. See, ambulance you can't compare with the delivery point, etc. But said that in fact, I was little shaken. He said that you guys are not thinking digitally. You are not digital thinkers. Fine, by now there is no point arguing with them. Now, how would you contest an argument like this, Dr. Arjun, where consumer experience is growing beyond limitations?
So very apt. I think the expectations of the patients and the users itself, I think now they don't compare us to other healthcare institutes. I mean, I wish they compared us to the labs and the hospitals that you say today find in Europe or in the US, right? Like I had a friend just last week who was traveling in the US with his family, had a very bad flu and a bad throat ache and wanted the influenza test. So they're back now. It's been 10 days. He still hasn't got the report for which he had paid $180. And he also had to wait for 2 days to get the test done. So, I mean, if you are really comparing a healthcare service to another healthcare service, I mean, it's an apple to apple comparison. And there I feel, and I'm very proud to say this, India is Q1 and L1. So, I mean, matlab number one in quality and number
Correct.
one in price. But again, if you look at, say, comparing us to a Blinkit, then I mean, we are really not selling tomatoes and Ruffles and Pepsis and Cokes, right? So it's a service. Even the phlebotomist who's coming to collect your sample, there's a trained technician. I mean, you can't just allow anyone and everyone to, draw your sample with a needle, right, or touch your family member unless they are trained. So I think that's not at all a fair comparison. But I think that even this comparison, Sanishi, has some merit. Now, people will debate about this with me, but I feel that an industry or a profession like healthcare and diagnostics, we've always learned after looking at the other ecosystems or other industries around us. So, for example, I'll give you an example like the airport industry, right? Like the airports that we see, there is a conveyor belt. That same conveyor belt gets Sanish Ji's luggage, then Natesh's, then Dr. Alok's, then Dr. Ravi's, then Anoop's and mine. And we pick up our particular suitcase that is tagged with a particular name that is ours. So similarly, the conveyor belt system, even in today's clinical chemistry lab that Anoop is also installed in so many places with his systems, it's again from the travel industry only that is coming up. You look at pre-analytical technology. So I was recently discussing with in Abbott also, and they have something called Indexer. And I was really complimenting them about this because basically our samples coming from different labs to our central lab, they actually put it in a box that can actually not only show me the GPS location of each vacutainer, but also tell me the temperature that it was under. And then when it reaches here, and suppose there are 200 samples that are lying there, it's placed on a tray where if I know that suppose is urgent, I just type it there and Ravi Gaur's sample will flash up there. So, I mean, there are ways in which we have learned from other industries. For example, now in a Zomato, you just pay 50 rupees extra and you get everything super quick, right? I mean, so I mean, to expedite things, also how to embrace technology is very, very important. But I think at the end of the day, we are a service. Now, for me to also tell you something that I actually took from the Netflixes of the world and actually incorporated into our systems, and that's actually been a very big hit, is that so when you're on Netflix, I don't know how many of you have tried it, but at the same time, if you have two logins in Netflix, there is suppose mine and my wife's Netflix. If I log in, there are two logins. If I log in, they look completely different. She'll have romantic movies and she'll have all like comedies and everything. And then if you enter mine, it's only blood and Dharundhar and Black Mirror and all these dark shows and movies. So it's personalized to what we have watched in the past. It's personalized to what we will enjoy. Now, similarly, what we created was a free of cost website where anyone can log in. I've sent this on a lot of forums, but anyone can log in, and suppose it's six of us, and hypothetically all six of us on the screen right now are say 40-year-old males who go into a lab today. We actually pick our particular test based on two basic things. One is our budget, second is our basic medical knowledge, considering we are not from the medical field. But so what we set out to do and what this website does, it's called discover by drtanks.com, and that basically helps you log in and pick the right test for you. So, I mean, it's not a pre-made package, it's a right test, because what we've always believed is that healthcare does not fit one size in all. It has to be personalized. And everyone, all these tests are based on your health goal, your previous medical history, that is the longitudinal data we were talking about, your family history, and also more importantly, what is your main issue that's bothering you. So, I mean, this website does just that. It takes some basic history, it takes into account your health goal. For example, I mean, if there are six of us, we can have six different health goals. So, I mean, you pick your health goal and then it takes some general questions and bases your history and your past reports, and then tells you exactly what test is to be done. Every test that is suggested there has a peer reviewed publication also, just for the reader or the user or the doctor to see why this test was done for this particular person. So I think broadly the paradox in the healthcare industry is that the more technology we introduce, the more human we have to get. And when I say that, I mean that you can always have an AI chatbot answering the particular queries. But at the end of the day, the AI chatbot has to be monitored by a human who understands how to handle those escalations and resolve them immediately. I mean, with all the stalwarts around me who report on a daily basis, and Dr. Ravi Gaur sir, Dr. Alok Sharma, I mean, we all use these digital pathology modules, right? But there is not a single digital pathology module till date that can, if you give him 100 cases, you can release all 100 on their own. I mean, it will require your supervision. It can triage the cases for you. It can also tell you that, okay, these two cases might be in a gray area where we need your expertise or a second opinion. So, I mean, AI and technology will always remain to be a very critical tool, but it's not going to, of course, replace us. It's going to help us bring our service delivery aspect as close to a Blinkit or a Netflix. But of course, the human empathy and expertise is what is going to be the cornerstone, and was yesterday, will be today, and also tomorrow. Thank you.
That is fine. We need speed. We need economical everything. Let us see how technology will drive help. Moving further, we have the clock is ticking up. We have 10 more minutes left. See, what are the Ms. Anoop, digital infrastructure gap in the country? How do you look at that?
Uh, it's a very valid question, but to answer this, firstly, we need to understand about the Indian healthcare scenario. Might be you are all of the panelists are much aware about this, but in typical Indian scenario, we have an urban large chain and the private hospitals. They have an advanced system in place, but still 80% of Indian market mid-sized hospitals and diagnostics regional players, they are still using a fragmented system. So if we talk about the gap from our side, we believe the most underestimated gap is the change management and the digital readiness. We have seen that the management and the stakeholders of the organization, they actually don't, they are very rigid and accept the changes. It's all about training, process redesigning, and clinical adaptation. Until we accept those that we are ready to change, this is a very big gap. And to adopt a new technology, as an Indian I'm talking about, not we are considering for the bigger chain and the urban setups. But if you go to the remote part of tier 4 cities of India, there is still living in a legacy systems. They are not very much keen to change. They are not very much acceptable. Acceptance is not there for changing or moving into the new systems. This is a mindset. Now, when we talk about the infrastructural gap, after mindset, that 80% of the market segments are fragmented with the different products. Fragmentation across the country, different, across the region, across hospitals and the labs is good because every product has their own features. But still, we have to reconsolidate that whatever the product that they are using that has a feature of interoperability. At least the current application which any of the organization they are using should have their product ready made, should have their product they can talk well through HL7 and FHIR. In India right now we are talking about HL7. It's a matter of fact the word is moved to FHIR, but our systems are still HL7 compliant systems. You will hardly find 1 or 2% of the good products in the market. Those are saying and claimed that we are an FHIR compliant system. So this is the real gap that the entire industry is using good products across, but they are not communicating each other. The third and the important part, which we cannot ignore, I always, in my previous point also, and that is very close to our heart, that if we want a good infrastructure, digital transformation, we have to work on the data. The data is so segregated, even not across the organization. Within an organization also, we have seen that we are still lagging behind for creating a good masters in the product. Because what I understand, if you actually expect a good outcome of the product, you should have a good input. So we need to think over the standardization of the data. We have to use your ICD code 10s. People are using it, but when we frame any judgment, that should be very generic. That how much percentage they are using. So still in Indian legacy systems, we are far behind for using all those CPT codes, ICD-10. Even the masters they made, they have multiple, duplication in the master. One test can be created in 3 names because of their pricing. Their
Yes,
legacy
yes.
systems, their LIS are not
Yeah,
basically
doctor.
apart. They are
Correct.
not able to make one product, one item for different rate lists also. The third and the foremost is when we talk about digital transformation and the gaps, we should not ignore cyber security. The more we digitalize healthcare, we are dealing with the patient data. We are fortunate enough that post COVID, our government has taken a lot of steps. They came with a policy,
Okay.
DPDP Act, and apart from that, they just launched Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission. But it's a matter of fact, still there is a rigidness. They people are rigid that they are not implementing. Government has forced IT
Correct.
companies, product companies to be a compliant of NABH compliant product, or maybe a digital ABDM compliant product, M1, M2, M3. But still, there's a lot of
Yeah.
resistance in the implementation part of
Yeah,
it.
yes, Anoopji, I think you will keep on going. Anoopji, let me put I need to take Nareshji a special privilege.
Sure.
I would put a rather passionate question for you. Who should own the challenge of digitalization in a hospital? It's a CIO, the promoter. Who should own the challenge of digital transformation? Quickly, then we will respect the audience. There are a couple of questions we will take.
So, you want me to answer this?
No, I put it to Natesh
Yeah.
ji.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. Okay. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's a good question, actually. With all due respect to Mr. Anoop, I would say a digital transformation cannot be just an IT person led or a CIO led or just an IT vendor led. It has to come from ownership. It has to come from the top management, top leadership. It should be top down. That's my strong feeling, and we should always remember digital transformation is not just for the sake of digital transformation. The ultimate goal is better patient care. That is something which all stakeholders should remember, that better patient outcomes, better patient care is the ultimate thing. So I think this should be driven top down and not just IT led.
Okay. So let us, in respect to few of the comments from audience, there are a couple of questions. I would prefer, I will read that question. How can rural and undeserved communities benefit from connected health innovations? Anybody want to volunteer to take?
Well,
Yes, Dr. Ravi, please.
I can address
Please.
that. Before I address it, I think I'd like to comment on what Arjun said. When I log into his Netflix, I probably see him walking in the Lodi Garden, but still connected to the best of innovative technologies, working everywhere. Probably that's what exactly is mind, not like the blood, because that's the mind. I think I know him personally because innovation, technology adoption, integration. He keeps doing. Coming back to what your question is, I think. Rural and underserved community will definitely help in two important aspects. One is on preventive health, and second is your chronic disease monitoring, because that is something you can probably always talk about, because unless awareness, prevention. And then, like these people are not aware. 50% of Indians probably don't even know, especially in a bigger tier three, tier four, or maybe even bigger city, they're not aware of that they have diabetes. Now that is something, and when do you have to probably when go visit for the next visit, when to follow it up, what net investigation can be done. I think when you have a complete one admission, after that the communication. I think the biggest problem today is after discharge, what I mentioned is the communication. It is not yet reached properly, not yet read properly. But if you are connected, show them a graphics, the journey. I think that is where rural people probably they may not understand the language. They understand, okay, this point of time, this is the point, 2 day, 3 day, colorful. I think this is something we can easily help prevention and predictive and probably the chronic disease monitoring. Two areas, and of course, the entire digital history. You don't have to repeat everything to every place. This is what happening. You go to a small town, you come to a bigger hospital, entire the investigation once again and once again and once again and once again. Why again and again? Connect together. Probably one or two is good enough, and that saves affordability, accessibility. And this is, I think, very very important part. Probably to my mind, that's something which I feel. Uh, that's the answer to this question. Anything else you want to ask me? We can't hear you.
You're
Satish?
muted, Mr. Sanish.
Yes, sorry. Our digital system should reach to even the illiterate set of people, the people who can't even read or write. So that way, our system should be strong enough to reach a wider population. Now, moving to the next question.
Certain pathology.
How can AI
Mention
improve patient?
just one answer, because we have seen certain pathology reports. We have a value of cholesterol, and there's a reference range is fine. They just make a smiley, normal, tear. That means, oh, smiley, you're fine.
Correct.
So tear down. I think that graphics is good enough. I think something like that you're talking about. Yeah, please, next
Yes,
question.
yes. See this, in probably I recollect Professor Prahlad, C.K. Prahlad, who made the concept of bottom of the pyramid. We should address the bottom of the pyramid customers. Anyway, moving further, how can AI improve patient outcomes without compromising data privacy? Even though we have touched upon, I would prefer Dr. Anoop to take this, please.
Mr. Anoop?
Dr. Anoop.
Hello.
Sorry, Anoop, shall I repeat the question? AI, how you will use AI without compromising data privacy?
Mr. Anoop Arora, it's addressed to you.
Probably,
I think he is not able to hear
Anoop,
us.
आप audible?
Hello.
Yeah, नदेश जी आप ले लीजिएगा, please. Go ahead, नदेश जी आप जाइए. Data privacy without. You want me to read the question?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah, I will be reading again. How can AI improve patient outcomes without compromising data privacy? It's a question from a audience.
I think I would let Dr. Alok Sharma answer this. Dr. Alok?
Yeah. So I think it's more of a technical question, but still I'll give it a shot. So I think data privacy, especially, am I audible, right?
Yes, yes, please.
Yes.
Okay, fine. So Pani, when we talk about improving patient outcomes with the AI, I think that's one very important layer of data. Now with the DPDP Act coming in, I think we all need to be very careful about how we integrate our AI solutions into the solutions which we are developing and which are actually important in patient outcomes. I think I'm not too much aware of the digital kind of technical part of it, but definitely how AI can improve patient outcomes without compromising data privacy probably will need to, at the outset when we are designing our algorithms. I think that's a very important part. So a lot of these data security algorithms, I'm telling you from my own experience, are actually thought over when those algorithms and solutions have been built. And then we kind of think about how data security is going to get implemented. I think the first very important step going forward with the new regulation thing, we think about data security at the outset. In fact, at the point when we are annotating our data, that is the point where we should start thinking about the security. And if we are wise enough to address that problem at the outset, I think when we talk about patient outcomes, it's automatically going to get affected. So I think there will be a lot of technical.
So I'll just add to that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
So I'll
yes.
just add to that and completely agree with Dr. Alok Sharma. But the broad way that I look at it is using AI and that data that is generated responsibly, I think is going to be a huge thing of the future. Now you look at the clouds of the world and how they are coming in, and suddenly everything is seeming simpler, from basic coding to basic generative AI to tomorrow digital twins. I mean, all that data, where is it really kind of being used ethically, right? So of course there are these regional kind of data laws that one has, and of course I was mentioning to DPDP also, and that of course we are all kind of going to take that leap of faith and start that process. A lot of us are already compliant, and of course we'll all be in on that journey. It might be a hospital, might be a lab, might be any other healthcare provider, right? But apart from that, what DPDP also really says, and also if you look at HIPAA compliance also in the US, or GDPR also, what they say is that it's consent first data use. So I mean, you have to have the patient's consent. Second is that it should be strongly encrypted, so that if it is going into the wrong hands, it cannot be deciphered or decoded easily. Third is role based access. So I mean, if there is some kind of data that is going to AI or to a system that is going to crunch it through various paths and processes, it should be that, okay, person A or organization A can only get visibility on this much data, and B and C and D. Next one is anonymization wherever possible. I mean, even when we work with digital images and these various projects where we are collecting these images. Anonymization is very, very critical. Next is a strict audit trail. Even if you look at 21 CFR Part 11 or GAMP5, I mean, any of these CSV, that's computer system validation processes, they are supposed to make you have very strict audit trails. Cybersecurity, might it be your VAPT, that's your penetration testing, and of course compliance with the evolving data protection laws. I think this is very important and certainly going to be the elephant in the room in the years to come.
Yeah, Dr. Dank, good. Now we have two more questions. In the interest of the time, it will become selfish, and I will take the two questions and I will answer at my level. Let me see whether I can justify that. The first question: why is interoperability still such a big challenge in India? Obviously, healthcare systems is a late starter in our country, and there is not a protocol based. Then there is a cost factor. Mainly, it's not governed by a particular law. At least when all books of accounts, finance, they will submit. They have certain guidelines. The balance sheet would be this. So software should be made on that way. And the very interesting question, which is following next, is why hasn't a single patient record been implemented in India yet? Yes, that is right. Again, the same thing. People compare banking and maybe shop mall systems. All those later entries were platform-based, technology-based applications started, but hospitals started from silos. The right way Natesh said that it is operating in silos. Even in a single hospital, you will see multiple systems running. All those, to satisfy all those needs, then there are certain set of predominantly governed by government hospital, trust hospital, clinician based. Corporate structure is only taken maybe 30-40 years back. Then only all those systems started coming. So these are the issues. We don't see a flagship application like Tally or something didn't come. Obviously, now NABH is certifying certain certain application, including ITDOSE. The event sponsorer, they are certified for standards of DHS compliant. Yes, Doctor. Final closing remark, Doctor Ravi. I would request Norman to raise further fingers.
No, I'll just probably keep it very simple, 1 minute, not more. What you said, add to that. Like if you look at the whole scenario, when we see the hospital, diagnostics, healthcare providers, management, what we see at technology providers, of course, all of our users, but they have digitalized our healthcare processes, come what may. But we have not redesigned our healthcare thinking. I think that is something one happening probably. We are probably the 21st technology, or you can say era, century technology is with us. But we have workflow still about 20th century. And we're still talking 19th century in silos. My doctor, my patient, but all this. I think that is the biggest challenge right here. Probably once this rethinking, redesigning happen parallelly under technology, this is going to be a task, but it will happen. And then all the answers will be sorted out right away for the interest of the. And lastly, I would one takeaway message from my side, and I am a pure believer of that. Come what may, technology, anything, but I think it's a human element is very, very important in healthcare. So a message kind of a thing. The connected healthcare should not mean disconnected humans. Connected healthcare. You can say your phone can remind you of a drink, water. Your watch talks about your heartbeat and stress kind of a thing. Your app can talk about the doctor appointment you can take. Lab reports, okay, before you reach home, report reaches you. But sometimes you say that a patient will think, so many things, but nobody spoke to me. I think that's where it is. The connected healthcare and connected care both have to come together, and then only it will be successful. That's my thought.
Yeah, yes, fine. Dr. Ravi, with the very finest closing remarks, we should not lose the human touch. Obviously, technology we can't ignore. Transformation we need to adopt. I am done with, it's wonderful being a co-panelist. I enjoyed really the session. Hopefully the audience also enjoyed the session. I think we will wind up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
all.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
all.
all.